The Draken Imperium was one of the most feared powers in the galaxy. Its palace floated like a giant crystal fortress on the edge of the Silver Nebula, shining with scales of metal and starlight. Dragons of every color flew around it, guarding their emperor with pride and a fire that could cut through ships. Everyone in the galaxy respected the dragons, most feared them, and almost no one dared to enter their palace, except one human. His name was Callan Ward, a young servant with a thin frame and calm eyes. Humans were a rare sight in the palace. Dragons did not think humans were dangerous. They thought humans were breakable, easy to ignore, and strangely clever in the most annoying ways. So Callan often walked quietly in the halls, trying not to anger anyone who could burn him with a single breath. He had lived in the palace for only 2 months, working as a cleaner. He kept his head down, spoke only when spoken to, and avoided all dragon nobles. Yet on this day, everything changed for him, for the palace, and for the imperial family. Because the Dragon Emperor's daughter, Princess Sarinthia, was sick. Dragons almost never fell sick. Their bodies were strong, their scales hardened from birth, and their energy, called worm fire, kept them healthy. But Sarinthia's worm fire had faded. Her bright silver scales had turned dull. Her wings trembled. Even her voice shook when she tried to speak. Dragon physicians came and went from her room every hour. They carried glowing instruments shaped like claws, crystals that read the flow of energy, and steaming bowls filled with herbs from across the galaxy. They whispered to one another. They argued in deep growls. They disagreed on everything except one fact. The princess was getting weaker. The emperor grew restless. He roared at the physicians, shouted at the servants, and smashed 3 crystal columns with his tail. Everyone in the palace feared him. His scales were gold mixed with black, the colors of conquest. When he grew angry, even the palace walls shook. "Find the cure," the emperor ordered, "or I will find new physicians." That threat was enough to send half of the medical team running to their labs in panic. But the truth was simple. No one knew what was wrong with Princess Sarinthia. No one except the princess herself. She whispered something that most dragons ignored. She told them in a weak voice, "It's under my bed." The guards laughed. The physicians rolled their eyes. The emperor dismissed it as a confused dream. After all, dragons did not fear things under beds. Dragons feared nothing. But Callan listened. He was cleaning the hallway when he overheard her whisper those words to her father. Her voice was so soft that only someone with human hearing, a hearing tuned to small sounds, not explosive roars, could make sense of it. Callan paused. Under her bed? What did she mean? A creature? A device? A shadow? Humans were used to checking under beds. It was one of the first places humans looked when something felt wrong. But dragons, they almost never considered such a simple idea. They were creatures of power, not subtlety. That night, Callan was summoned by an armored guard. The dragon towered over him with dark red scales and sharp horns. "You, human," the guard growled. "The emperor has chosen you for a task." Callan bowed, trying not to show his fear. "Yes, Guardian?" "You will clean the princess's chamber. The physicians demand the room be kept pure. Touch nothing unless ordered. Speak only if spoken to." "Yes, Guardian." "Good. And if you cause trouble—" The dragon leaned close. "I will roast you." Callan nodded quickly. The guard escorted him to the princess's room, an enormous chamber filled with pillars of glowing stone and curtains made of starlight cloth. At the center was a giant bed carved from a single block of moon crystal. The room was beautiful, but the atmosphere was heavy with worry. Princess Sarinthia lay on the bed, curled into herself. Her wings covered half her body, like a blanket made of silver feathers and scales. Her eyes were open but tired, staring at nothing. She was young for a dragon, only 70 years old, still a child by their standards, but her illness made her look far smaller. When Callan stepped inside, her eyes slowly turned toward him. They were a pale blue, glowing softly even in her weakness. "You're human," she whispered. "Yes, Your Highness," Callan said softly. "You are here to clean?" "Yes, Your Highness." She studied him for a long moment, as though looking into some deep part of him. Then she whispered something again, something she did not tell the physicians this time. "It's under the bed." Callan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Her voice did not sound confused. It sounded afraid. He kept cleaning as the guards watched him, but he also paid attention to the room. The bed was so large that 20 humans could sleep beneath it. The floor stones were warm in some areas and strangely cold in others. There were thin lines of dust under the bed that looked disturbed, as if something had slid across them. He heard something too, a faint scratching sound, almost like claws tapping on metal. Callan froze. The guards did not hear it. Their senses were sharp, but they were trained to listen for danger on a larger scale. Battles, explosions, heavy steps. Something small and sneaky was too quiet for them. Callan quietly began to sweep near the bed. The guards ignored him. They thought cleaning was a harmless activity. But Callan was not sweeping dust. He was studying the floor. The stones closest to the bed were cold, unnaturally cold. He placed his hand on one stone. A small vibration ran through his fingers, almost like a heartbeat. Callan pulled his hand away, eyes widening. Whatever was making the princess sick, it was not natural. He moved around the room again, pretending to dust the shelves and smooth the curtains. He looked at the princess from the corner of his eye. She was watching him. She seemed to notice that he noticed something. When the guards stepped away to speak to a physician outside the door, the princess whispered fast, afraid someone might hear. "It comes every night," she said. "When the lights dim, when I close my eyes." Callan stepped a little closer, careful not to wake suspicion. "What comes, Your Highness?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," she said. "It scratches the floor. It whispers like wind. It pulls at me. It feels like something is trying to take my fire away." Her voice trembled. Her wings shook. "Have you told your father?" Callan asked. "He thinks it is a nightmare," she whispered. "They all think I dreamed it. Dragons do not get frightened. Dragons do not imagine monsters under beds." Callan nodded slowly. Humans imagine such things all the time, and humans survive them because they paid attention. Callan looked around the room once again. He heard the soft scratching, faint but real. He felt the cold pulse under the floor. He smelled a strange scent, like burnt ozone mixed with damp metal. None of this was normal. When Callan finished cleaning, he bowed to the princess. She gave him a small, grateful nod. As he left, he whispered only one word to her. "I'll check." Her eyes widened slightly with hope. Callan walked out of the room and closed the door behind him. The guard grumbled something about weak humans, but Callan barely heard him. His mind was racing. There was something under the princess's bed, and tomorrow night, when the palace dimmed its lights and the dragons slept, Callan Ward planned to find out exactly what it was. The next day in the Draken Palace felt strangely quiet to Callan Ward. Dragons moved through the halls with heavy steps, whispering in low growls. Everyone talked about the princess's worsening condition. Even the flames in the wall lamps burned lower, as if the palace itself shared the anxiety. Callan kept working as usual, cleaning corridors and polishing crystal pillars, but his mind was not on his chores. All he could think about was the cold pulse under the princess's bed and the faint scratching sound that no dragon seemed able to hear. Humans were used to noticing small things. Dragons were used to noticing big things. Maybe that difference was the reason Callan had been able to sense what no one else had. He replayed the princess's words in his mind. It comes every night. It pulls at me like it wants my fire. Fire, for dragons, was life. Worm fire was their energy, their strength, their very essence. If something was draining that, then whatever hid under her bed was more dangerous than anyone realized. Callan decided he had to return to the princess's room, but he had no permission today. He needed a plan. In the afternoon, while carrying fresh cloths through the medical wing, he spotted the senior physician, a tall, blue-scaled dragon named Vorthon. His scales shimmered like ice when he moved. With a respectful bow, Callan approached. "Excuse me, Master Physician. I cleaned the princess's chamber last night. Should I tidy it again today?" Vorthon barely looked at him. "No. The guards have orders that no one enters except healers." Callan nodded, pretending to accept the answer. But he also noticed something else. When the physicians gathered to discuss treatments in the hall, the guards often moved away to give them space. That meant there would be moments, small ones, when the princess's door was not watched closely. Callan did not like breaking rules, but he liked even less the idea of a young dragon princess suffering because everyone ignored the truth. He made his decision. Tonight, he would check under the bed. The sun lamps dimmed when the palace reached its quiet cycle, a period when dragons rested and the entire structure dropped into a calm hum. The grand hallways, usually loud and busy, fell silent. Even the air felt softer. Callan kept to the shadows as he approached the princess's chamber. His heart beat fast, but his footsteps were light. Humans could move quietly when they wanted to. At the far end of the hallway, he saw two guards walking away, heading toward the medical wing. They probably had been called for another meeting with the Emperor. "This is my moment," Callan thought. He slipped to the door, pulled out a small tool he always carried, a thin metal sliver used to clean tight corners, and gently probed the control room. The door unlocked with a soft click. He slipped inside and closed it behind him. The room was almost dark. The starlight curtains shimmered faintly, and the bed glowed softly with moon crystal light. Princess Cerinthia lay sleeping, her breathing slow but uneven. Her wings twitched every few seconds, as though something disturbed her dreams. Callan stepped closer. He whispered, "Your Highness, I'm here." Her eyes opened slowly, glowing pale blue like fading stars. "The guards. Are you allowed?" "No," he said honestly. "But I came anyway." A weak smile touched her muzzle. "I hoped you would." She tried to lift herself, but fell back in exhaustion. Callan gently placed a hand on the edge of the bed. "Don't move. Just tell me, does it feel close?" She swallowed. "Yes, it watches me. It knows when I am awake." Callan felt a chill. He knelt on the floor and peered under the bed. At first he saw only darkness. But as his eyes adjusted, he noticed something strange. The cold stone tiles were marked with dim lines, thin glowing cracks that formed a strange pattern. The cracking was not natural. It looked almost like a map, or veins under skin. He leaned closer. A faint pulse ran through one of the glowing lines. Callan jerked back in surprise. The floor was alive, or something beneath it was. He took a deep breath. "Your Highness, when the scratching happens, does it feel like it comes from the floor or the bed?" "The floor," she whispered. "Always the floor." Callan lay flat on his stomach and slid halfway under the bed. It was tight, but he could manage. Dragons couldn't. That was probably why no one ever looked here. He reached out and touched one of the glowing cracks. It was ice cold, colder than anything he had felt in the palace, even colder than Vorthon's cryo-medical tools. The stone almost burned his skin with frost. He pressed harder. A soft sound echoed, a whispering hum, like wind swirling inside a bottle. Callan shivered. "Princess," he said softly, "did anything strange happen before you became sick? Anything unusual in this room?" She thought for a moment, blinking tiredly. I had a dream. A strange one. I heard a voice calling me. It sounded like me, but not me. Like an echo trying to copy me." Callan frowned. "An echo?" "Yes, and the night after that dream, the scratching began." Callan closed his eyes. A creature that copied voices, that drained energy, that hid under floors. He remembered old Humyn stories about shadow creatures that mimicked children to lure them out of bed. He had never believed those tales. But here in a palace full of alien beings, ancient species, and powerful technologies, who could say what was real? "Your Highness, may I check the floor deeper? It might be dangerous. But I think there is more here than a simple crack." She nodded slowly. "Be careful, Callan, please." Callan took out a small set of tools from his cleaning pouch. To dragons, it was just simple equipment. But to humans, these tools had many clever uses. He had thermal chalk to mark hot or cold spots, a resonance strip to detect vibrations, and a tiny gravimeter he had built from leftover palace parts. He started with the chalk, drawing a thin line near the glowing cracks. The chalk turned dark blue instantly, showing extreme cold. Too cold for natural stone. Too cold even for deep space stone tiles. He placed the resonance strip flat on the floor. It buzzed softly. He moved it over the glowing cracks. The buzzing grew louder. There was a rhythm, a pattern, almost like a heartbeat. Callan's breath caught in his throat. He pushed the gravimeter onto the floor and watched the little needle twitch violently. Energy was gathering beneath the bed. Not any energy he recognized. Something foreign. Something dangerous. As he watched, a soft ripple passed along the cracks like a wave. Callan whispered, "Princess, I think something is trying to come through the floor." Sarinthia clutched her blankets. "Through? From where?" "I don't know," Callan said, "but I think it's a different place. Not from this room. Not from this palace. A dimension? A pocket space? A deep core energy breach?" Humans studied such things in science fiction stories. Dragons studied them in ancient history. But neither expected to find something like this under a princess's bed. The floor pulsed again. This time, louder, stronger. The glow brightened. A thin crack widened. Not enough to break the tile, but enough to release a soft breath of cold air. And then Callan heard it. Scratching. Not metal against stone. Not claws. Something softer. Like fingers. Callan forced himself not to jerk back. If he moved too fast, he might alert whatever was inside. He slowly slid deeper under the bed and pressed his ear to the stone. He heard a whisper that sounded very much like the princess. Callan's skin crawled, his heart pounded. The whisper repeated again, the same tone, the same soft voice. "Help me. Help me." But the real princess was behind him on the bed. He backed out quickly and sat up, breathing hard. "It's copying your voice," he said quietly. Her eyes widened with fear. "Why?" "I don't know," Callan said honestly, "but I think it's been trying to reach you. Maybe trying to pull your energy into its world. Maybe trying to make you respond." The princess shook her head. "It feels like something pulls my fire each night. Like I lose a little more of myself." Callan stood, determination filling him. Humans could fear many things, but they were also brave, especially when someone needed help. He looked at the glowing cracks. "Your Highness," he said, "whatever is under this bed, it's not from our world. And tonight, I'm going to find out exactly what it is." the princess whispered. You are not afraid? Callan smiled gently. Of course I am, but being afraid doesn't mean I run away. She stared at him, amazed. Dragons always thought bravery came from strength, but humans showed a different kind of courage, quiet, stubborn, and steady. Callan knelt again, ready to investigate deeper. But before he placed his hands on the cracks, the floor suddenly pulsed bright white. The cold intensified, the whispering grew louder. Something beneath the surface moved, slowly, carefully, like a creature waking up. Callan leaned forward, eyes narrowed. The night was not quiet anymore, and whatever hid under the princess's bed was finally stirring. The pulse of light under the princess's bed faded slowly, leaving behind a chilling silence. Callan stayed kneeling on the cold floor, his hands frozen above the glowing cracks. Princess Scifi watched him from the bed, her breath shallow and uneven. Her silver wings trembled slightly, reflecting the dim light of the starlight curtains. Callan, what is it doing? She whispered. I'm not sure, he replied, but it's reacting to something, maybe to us, maybe to the quiet cycle. Maybe both. Callan didn't know the truth yet, but he felt it in the cold air. Whatever lived beneath the stone tiles was no ordinary creature. He took a slow breath and leaned closer to the cracks again. The floor was silent now, no scratching, no whispering. Only the faint, unnatural cold remained. Your Highness, he said softly, I need to remove one of these tiles. Her eyes widened. Isn't that dangerous? Yes, he admitted, but I can't help you if I don't understand what we're dealing with. The princess swallowed. She looked weaker than before, her fire dimming more each hour, but she nodded. Do it. Callan reached into his pouch and pulled out a flat, thin pry tool. It was meant for cleaning corners and removing small panels, not lifting heavy stone tiles. But humans were good at making small tools do big things. He wedged the tool under the glowing crack, trying to lift the tile slowly. Nothing happened. He pushed harder. Still nothing. He whispered to himself, Come on, just a little more. On the third attempt, the stone tile moved. Just a hair, but enough to release a stronger wave of cold air. The princess gasped quietly. Callan's breath turned white. Callan, she whispered. I feel it again. The pull. Callan stopped instantly. The dull glow under the tile brightened, then dimmed again, like a heartbeat slowing down. Whatever was beneath the floor seemed to sense the princess's energy, and Callan could not risk giving it more access. He sat back, thinking hard. Opening the tile fully would give the creature, or whatever it was, a clear path. That might be dangerous for both of them. He needed more information first. He took out his resonance strip again. He placed it on the crack. The strip buzzed, paused, then buzzed again in a slow, repeating pattern. Callan frowned. That rhythm, he murmured. It's almost like breathing. He placed the strip in another place. The buzzing changed slightly. He moved it again. The buzzing changed again. Callan's eyes widened. It's moving, he said, very slowly, like it's shifting position under the floor. The princess shivered. Can it hear us? Callan didn't want to answer that question without being sure. Instead, he lay flat on the floor once more, pressing his ear near the tile. At first, he heard only silence. But then, a soft, distant whisper drifted through the stone. This time the whisper said something new. It said his name. Callan? Callan's heart stopped for a moment. The whisper was perfect. The tone, the sound, the slight human softness, the way he said his own name when introducing himself. Scifi saw the fear in his eyes. It copied you too, she whispered. Callan slowly backed away from the floor. It's not copying voices at random. It's listening, learning, studying. He rose to his feet, rubbing his arms to warm himself as the cold slowly faded. The princess watched him carefully. "Do you think it is alive?" "I'm almost certain," he replied. "But I don't know if it's a creature or something stranger." He paced slowly around the room, thinking. Dragons never questioned the structure of the palace. They trusted its ancient design. But Callan had grown up in a world full of tunnels, basements, crawl spaces, and hidden wiring. "If there's something under the floor," he said, "there has to be a path, a crack, a gap, or—" His eyes widened. "A dimensional fold." "A what?" the princess asked. Callan knelt again and touched the glowing cracks. "Some species can fold space, not teleportation, just bending space like paper. It creates pockets between dimensions." The princess frowned weakly. "Does anything in the palace use that?" He shook his head. "Dragons don't need pocket spaces. They don't hide things. They don't use subtle technology." She managed a faint smile. "No, we do not." "So something else made this," he concluded. He placed both hands on the floor, feeling for vibrations. He took out the gravimeter once more. The needle twitched wildly again, showing unstable energy. "It's definitely not natural," he whispered. He felt the cold pulse again, just a faint throb this time. The cracks glowed slightly brighter, then faded. Callan stood slowly. "Your Highness, I think it's trapped." The princess blinked. "Trapped?" "Yes. Whatever it is, it's stuck under the floor, maybe stuck between dimensions, and it's trying to pull energy from whatever it can reach. You're the strongest thing in this room, so it reached for you." Princess Cerinthia's voice trembled with fear and sadness. "It steals my fire because it wants to survive." Callan nodded. "Maybe. We don't know if it means harm. It could just be desperate." She lowered her head. "But it's killing me." "Yes," he said quietly, "and that's why we have to stop it." Another pulse ran through the cracks, sharper this time, almost like a warning. The floor seemed to breathe again, air flowing through places that should have been solid. Callan's eyes hardened with determination. He wasn't strong like dragons. He couldn't breathe fire or fly. But humans had different strengths. They adapted. They solved problems. They stepped into the dark when others hesitated. He went back to his tools and began placing small markers around the glowing cracks, chalk lines, resonant strips, and tiny metal pins that jingled when the ground vibrated. The princess watched him with tired curiosity. "What are you doing?" "Mapping," Callan answered. "Humans like maps. When we don't understand a danger, we draw it until we can see the shape of it." "You think danger has a shape?" He smiled slightly. "Everything has a shape if you look long enough." For the next 10 minutes, he worked quietly, marking every spot where the energy pulsed, where the cold increased, and where the whispers were strongest. When he finished, he stepped back. On the floor, a rough pattern was visible. Lines connected the coldest tiles, forming a strange oval shape, almost like an egg made of light and shadow. Cerinthia stared at it. "An egg?" Callan nodded. "Or a shell, or a cocoon, something waiting for enough energy to break through." The princess tensed. "Break through? Into this room?" Callan met her gaze seriously. "If we don't stop it, yes." Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply. The cracks glowed brighter than before. The whispers returned, louder, more confident. Callan and the princess both froze. The whispers shifted and began forming words. But not the princess's voice, not Callan's. Something new, something wrong. A voice with too many echoes, too many layers, too much hunger. So close. Callan stepped forward, placing himself between the princess and the glowing cracks. Humans weren't strong, but they were stubborn, and Callan refused to let anything threaten someone who trusted him. "Your Highness," he said quietly, "you need to move away from the bed, even a few steps." She tried, but she seemed too weak. Her wings trembled, and she managed only a few inches before collapsing back. Callan rushed to her side and gently supported her. "Easy. Don't force yourself." She looked at him with fear in her pale blue eyes. "Callan, what if it comes out tonight?" He took a deep breath. "Then I'll stop it." Her eyes widened. "You? You are only one human." Callan smiled, though his heart pounded with fear. Sometimes one human is enough. The floor pulsed again, stronger. The lights flickered. The air trembled. Callan positioned himself between the princess and the bed, ready to face whatever came next. The glowing cracks split open, just a little, releasing a thin line of swirling darkness, and a shape began to rise. Long, shadowy, almost serpent-like. Princess Cerinthia gasped weakly. Callan stood firm. The palace outside was silent. Dragons slept peacefully, unaware of the danger inside their own walls. But in this single room, a human servant faced a creature from another dimension, and he did not run. The shadowy shape rising from the floor made Callan freeze. It was thin at first, like smoke with a mind of its own, but then it stretched, forming long curves that shimmered like liquid darkness. Princess Cerinthia pressed her claws into the bed, her breathing uneven as the cold in the room deepened. Frost began creeping along the stone tiles. Callan stood between her and the swirling crack in the floor, his heart hammering in his chest. He had no weapons. He had only his tools, his mind, and the stubborn courage that humans were known for when cornered. The shadow moved again, shifting its body like a snake waking from centuries of sleep. Its form flickered, one moment long like a thin serpent, another moment twisted like folded cloth. It had no eyes, but Callan felt it look at him. The whispers returned, not copying a voice, not imitating anyone this time. The sound was its own. "Hungry?" Callan swallowed hard. "Princess, don't move. Whatever it wants energy, not you." Cerinthia's voice shook. "It has been taking my fire for many nights. It wants more." "Not tonight," Callan said quietly. He knelt quickly, trying to understand the creature's shape, structure, anything. Every answer mattered now. The glowing cracks pulsed brighter as the creature lifted itself a few inches more, still halfway inside the dimensional fold. Callan noticed something important. The creature never fully left the crack. It hovered, it stretched, it reached, but it did not step out. "Your Highness," he whispered, "I don't think it can come out fully, not yet." Cerinthia blinked slowly. "Why not?" Callan pointed at the cracks. "The fold isn't stable. It opens only when your fire is near. Your energy acts like a bridge, a magnet. It needs your fire to cross." She shivered. "So it uses my strength to escape?" "Yes," he said. "It's not trying to kill you on purpose. It's feeding so it can break through." Callan felt the room temperature drop again. The floor tiles groaned softly, as if something pushed from below. The creature twisted, its body shimmering with black static. "Close. Close," it whispered. Callan clenched his fists. "Not happening." He grabbed his gravimeter, his resonance strip, and a few metal pins. If the creature needed the princess's fire, then Callan's job was simple. Break the connection. Stop the flow. Protect the princess. But how? He was just a human with small tools and basic knowledge. He wasn't a dragon sorcerer or a dimensional scientist, but humans didn't give up. He knelt beside the cracks and dropped the gravimeter onto the floor. The needle spun wildly. He moved it farther away. The needle slowed. He moved it closer. The needle shot to the red zone. "It's connected to her energy field," he murmured. He took a deep breath. "Okay, so we block the path." He grabbed the resonance strip and placed it directly over the brightest glowing line. Instantly, the buzzing intensified, vibrating through the whole room. The shadow creature recoiled, shrinking slightly. Scifi gasped. "Callan! It reacted!" "Yes," he said, excitement flickering in his voice. "The resonance disrupts the energy flow. It doesn't like interference." He placed another strip on the opposite crack. The buzzing doubled. The creature hissed, a sound like shattering ice, and withdrew slightly farther into the fold. But just as hope sparked in Callan's chest, the creature surged again, pushing against the cracks violently. The strips trembled, almost flying off. Scifi cried out as a wave of cold washed over her. "It's pulling harder!" Callan grabbed the strips to keep them in place. The cold burned his fingers, but he didn't let go. "Princess! Focus your fire inward! Don't let it pull!" I'm too weak." "You're a dragon," he said through clenched teeth. "You don't need to be strong. You just need to hold." Her eyes glowed faintly. She nodded and closed them. A soft shimmer of silver light spread from her chest, forming a small barrier around her. It wasn't strong, but it slowed the drain. The creature thrashed, its whispers turning sharper. "Mine! My fire! Give! Give!" "No," Callan said firmly. "She's not yours." He reached into his pouch again and pulled out something he had built weeks ago from discarded palace parts, a small metal device no bigger than his palm. It was a gravlock stabilizer used to balance floating shelves in the Dragon Library. Callan had modified it, adding wires and crystal shards. He had no idea if it could affect dimensional energy, but he had to try. He placed the stabilizer between the two resonance strips, right over the center of the glowing cracks. He flicked the switch. A soft hum filled the room. Then a pulse of force erupted downward. The floor shook slightly. The creature jerked as if struck. The whispers turned into a low, angry rumble. Scifi gasped, but Callan remained focused. "It's working. Maybe—" The stabilizer glowed brighter. Then, crack! A sharp sound tore through the room as the stabilizer overloaded, sparks shooting from its sides. Callan yelped and dropped it. It hit the floor, rolling away in a smoking trail. "No!" he shouted. "Not now!" The creature surged forward in that moment of weakness, rising higher, its shadowy form stretching toward the princess. She let out a weak cry as her silver light flickered. Callan ran to the fallen stabilizer, grabbed it, and hissed in pain from the heat. The device was half melted, wires exposed. He didn't have time to rebuild it. He needed another plan. The creature whispered again, louder this time. "So bright, so warm, feed." Scifi trembled, her wings curled in pain. Callan's mind raced. What did he have left? Tools, cloth, crystals? Then he remembered something important. Humans were not psionic like dragons. Human energy wasn't attractive to beings that fed on fire, light, or aura. They were, in a strange way, unappetizing. "What if?" Callan whispered to himself. He grabbed one of his metal pins and stuck it into the middle of a resonance strip. The buzzing changed pitch. He then took a second pin and held both ends, forming a small loop. If the creature needed strong energy to cross, then maybe Callan could confuse it with weak energy. He took a deep breath and stepped closer to the cracks. The princess tried to warn him. "Callan, don't go near it. It might take your life." "No," he said. "I don't think it wants human energy. I think my presence confuses it." He knelt inches from the glowing cracks, holding the pin loop in one hand, and placed his other hand on the floor. The cold stung his skin, but he held firm. The creature paused. Its body twitched. It tilted, as if sensing something strange. "Not fire, not energy. What?" Callan exhaled shakily. "Good. Notice me. Look at me, not her." The creature slithered closer to him, its shadowy form swirling like storm clouds. It stopped pulling Scifi's fire. The princess gasped as the pressure on her lifted slightly. Callan swallowed. That's it. Focus on me. I'm here. The creature leaned toward him, its head lowering until it hovered inches from his face. If it had eyes, they would have been staring deep into him. Empty. Hollow. Wrong. Yeah, Callan whispered. Humans are weird. Sorry about that. The creature's body pulsed uncertainly. Callan slowly lowered the pin loop onto the glowing crack. He twisted it, letting the resonant strips hum through the metal and into the floor. The creature recoiled violently, thrashing as the vibrations hit it. Stop. Wrong. 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 Callan didn't stop. He pressed the pins deeper, twisting again. The cracks flickered. The shadows trembled. Callan! Sarinthia cried. It's pulling back! And she was right. The creature was retreating slowly, unwillingly into the fold. Its whispers became faint echoes. Hungry, trapped, cold, alone. Callan felt a pang of sympathy. I know, but you can't stay here. You're hurting her. He pushed the pins deeper. The resonant strips glowed bright blue. The cracks tightened. Then, with a soft thump, the shadow creature slipped fully back into the dimensional fold. The glowing cracks faded. The cold disappeared. The room fell silent. Callan collapsed back on the floor, breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his forehead even though the air was still chilly. His hands trembled from the effort, and the broken stabilizer clattered beside him. Princess Sarinthia whispered, You did it. Callan, you sent it away. For now, he said quietly. The fold is still there. But it won't come out tonight. She looked at him with awe. You faced it with no fire, no claws, no magic. Callan gave a tired smile. Humans don't need those things. We just need a plan. She closed her eyes, her breathing calmer now, her fire finally resting. You saved me. Callan looked at the cracks one last time. No glow, no whisper, nothing. But he knew this wasn't over. He whispered to himself, Now I need a real solution, a way to fix the fold before it opens again. And for the first time in the palace's long history, a human, not a dragon, would have to solve a dimensional crisis. The palace dawn came slowly, with soft golden light spreading across the crystal ceilings. Dragons stretched their wings in wide halls, servants rushed through corridors, and the hum of the Imperium returned to life. But inside Princess Sarinthia's chamber, the mood was calmer, softer, like a breath held for too long finally released. Callan Ward sat on the floor beside the bed, half exhausted, half awake. His tools lay scattered around him, melted wires, cracked resonance strips, broken pins, and the shattered grav-lock stabilizer he had used to fight the shadow creature. The glow beneath the floor had faded hours ago. The cold had lifted, leaving only a faint chill. The princess slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. Her silver fire had stopped leaking away. Her breathing was steady. Her scales looked brighter, almost warm. Callan let out a tired sigh of relief. He had guarded her all night. He had listened for any whisper, any sound, any sign that the creature was returning. But the floor stayed silent. The dimensional fold was weak now, almost closed. He leaned his head back against the bed frame and whispered to himself, We made it through the night. Just then, the door burst open. 2 dragon guards stormed inside, their scales bristling with anger. Humyn! Step away from the princess at once! Callan jolted upright, hands raised. Wait! She's fine! I wasn't... Before he could finish, a heavy weight shook the ground. A shadow fell over him. The Dragon Emperor entered the room. Callan swallowed hard. The Emperor's presence filled the chamber like a storm. His gold and black scales shone brighter than any lamp, and his wings were folded tightly across his back. His eyes, sharp and burning, locked onto Callan. "What are you doing here?" the Emperor growled. "You were forbidden to enter this chamber." Callan felt fear spike through him, but he stood his ground. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but the princess was in danger." The Emperor took a step forward, claws scraping the floor. "You dare claim my daughter was endangered under my watch? By what? Dust under her bed?" Callan shook his head quickly. "No, Your Majesty, it wasn't dust. There was a creature. Something trapped under the floor. It was draining her fire." The guards laughed sharply. "Humans and their stories." But the princess stirred at that moment. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing gently in the morning light. "Father." The Emperor spun toward her instantly, his expression shifting from anger to deep worry. "Serinthia, are you harmed? Speak to me, my child." She pushed herself up with effort and smiled weakly. "Father, I'm better now. Truly." He hesitated. He studied her carefully. Her scales were brighter. Her breathing was stronger, her energy field, her worm fire was no longer flickering like a candle in the wind. You look well," the Emperor whispered, shocked. Serinthia nodded. "Because of him." She pointed at Callan. The guards froze. Callan felt his heart drop. He didn't know what the Emperor would do. Dragons respected strength, not small humans with improvised tools. "He protected me," Serinthia said. "He fought the creature. He kept it from taking my fire." The Emperor's jaw tightened. He turned to Callan again, but his expression was no longer pure anger. There was doubt now, confusion, even curiosity. "A creature?" he asked. "What creature?" Callan bent down and traced a line on the floor. The cracks no longer glowed, but faint marks remained, evidence of something unnatural beneath the surface. "This creature," he explained, "it was stuck between dimensions. It tried to anchor itself using the princess's fire. It wasn't evil, but it was starving. It didn't understand your world." The Emperor knelt to inspect the cracks, his claws gently scraping the cold lines. His face darkened. "The imperial palace was built over 10,000 years ago," he murmured. "If something ancient remained beneath it, we would not have known." Callan nodded. "The creature has been trapped for a long time. Maybe centuries, maybe longer." The Emperor grew silent. His wings folded tighter, and his breath rumbled low in his throat. Callan could see the struggle in his eyes. Anger, shame, fear, and pride, all tangled together. Finally, the Emperor rose and faced him. "You," he said slowly, "risked your life for my daughter." Callan swallowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." "You broke rules. You entered forbidden chambers. You touched my daughter's bed without permission." "Yes, Your Majesty." "And you faced a creature that even our physicians could not detect." Callan hesitated. "Yes, Your Majesty." The Emperor stared at him for a long, heavy moment. Callan felt sweat drip down his back. Serinthia held her breath. Then, the Emperor bowed his head. To Callan. The guards gasped. The princess smiled softly. "Humyn," the Emperor said in a deep voice, "you saved the heir of the Draken Imperium. You have earned honor, and more than honor." Callan blinked, stunned. "Your Majesty, I only did what anyone should do." "Not anyone," the Emperor corrected. "No dragon listened to her fears. No dragon believed something could hide under a bed. No dragon dared crawl beneath it." His voice softened. "But you did." Callan lowered his gaze respectfully. "Humans check under beds all the time, Your Majesty. It's normal for us." Serinthia let out a quiet laugh. Even the Emperor's eye twitched in amusement. He turned serious again. "Callan Ward, I offer you a reward, riches, land, a position in my court. What do you desire?" Callan breathed deeply. This was a moment most humans would dream of: fame, wealth, a chance to stand beside dragons as equals. but Callan only thought of one thing. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "I don't want wealth or titles. I only want fairness for my people." The Emperor tilted his head. "Fairness?" "Yes," Callan said. "Humans in the palace are treated like curiosities, or fragile creatures. But we are capable. We're clever in our own ways. If not for that, your daughter would still be suffering." The Emperor looked at him in silence. Cerinthia spoke gently. "Father, he is right. Humans helped us. They helped me. They can help more." The Emperor closed his eyes for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well." His voice was strong again, full of command. "From this day forward, humans in the Draken Imperium will be given a respected role. Not as servants, but as advisors in matters requiring subtlety and careful thought." Callan's eyes widened. "Your Majesty—" "You will be the first," the Emperor said. "You will serve as my daughter's official advisor in matters of hidden dangers, anomalies, and— what did you call them?" Callan smiled. "Low-tech problems, Your Majesty." "Yes, those," the Emperor agreed. Cerinthia laughed again, her energy brighter than before. "Callan, that's wonderful!" Callan bowed deeply. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will serve with everything I have." The Emperor nodded once, then looked at his daughter. "Cerinthia, my child. Rest. Recover your full fire. Your future remains vast." She leaned back onto her pillows. "I feel better already." Callan stepped closer to her. "Your Highness, I'll fix the fold completely. I won't let it return." She smiled softly. "I trust you." He nodded, a quiet determination filling him. He wasn't just a servant anymore. He wasn't just a human in a palace of dragons. He had faced a creature that dragons feared. He had protected the heir of the Imperium. He had changed the way the greatest empire in the galaxy viewed humanity. And as he looked down at the cracked floor, he whispered, "I promise. I'll make sure nothing under your bed ever scares you again." The princess closed her eyes peacefully. The Emperor stood proudly, and Callan Ward, one small human, took his first step into a new future, where humans and dragons walked forward together.